before I turn it over to Dawn, I wanted to just say one thing about the prior unit. And really, this goes for anything. You know, we are moving through this material fast. Remember, when a disaster happens, you're going to be in a team if you volunteer. You will be with other people, and collectively, you will all work together to try and remember what are the steps. That's why after you take this training, we're introducing you to concepts, but then you should go back, you should review these concepts and take every opportunity to practice when we offer it to you. And on March the 18th, that's how the events will unfold during the course of the day. You're always going to be in a team with other people, and you can say to one another, okay, so somebody remind me, what is it that we're doing next? So that's the beauty. It's one of the safety protocols that is critical to how we operate, but it's also the beauty of operating as a team. So don't be anxious. Don't worry. You know, we're all here to support one another. So without further ado, Dawn Fair from Alameda County Fire Department, CERT. Thank you very much for being with us tonight, and I'll turn it over to you.
Wonderful. Thank you very much for having me. I wanted to piggyback on that and say, you guys are getting a lot of information. Go to the trainings. As you participate in those trainings, it'll become more familiar. If you're being deployed, self-deploying, however Walnut Creek does it, take your piece of paper, walk along with that. Something that happened with me when I took the ICS part of that, it made me realize why the teams, emergency responders, don't immediately jump into something and go running somewhere. There is a whole lot of stuff, the logistics, all of this back stuff that Judy was addressing, that happens for everybody's safety. They don't run in like that, nor will we do that. So do participate in the trainings, familiarize yourself with it. And if it's not your strength, it's okay. That's what we are. We're volunteers. If it is not your strength and you're not comfortable doing it, you can say no. You can take this training if you choose not to leave your home after an event. That is your choice. So feel confident that you can say no. Feel confident that if it's, wait a minute, it sounded like a good idea, now I'm overwhelmed, I can't do that, it's okay to do that. But participate in the trainings. And as you do that, you're going to familiarize yourself with it. And a lot of the fear and angst is going to kind of dissipate when you know what's going on. So that's what I had to say about that. So welcome. We're going to talk about fire safety and utility controls. Again, you guys will receive training on this. We're going to go through a lot of information. Please feel free to put stuff in chat if you have any questions about it. So we talk about our unit objectives and how we play in fire safety and response. Our safety is priority number one. Our buddies' safety is priority number one. We always work in pairs. So we want to make sure that we are being safe. We want to use the size up that Judy referred to. I'll go ahead and refer to it. We refer to those gathering the facts and all those 9 steps in almost every single unit. We're going to talk about how to extinguish a small fire and what that is. We'll talk about identifying and reducing potential fires, utilities, hazardous materials, hazardous at home, and the communities, how we as CERT fit into that. So this slide here you're familiar with. Our personal safety is always number one. Did you want me to go over that, or did we just cover that?
We just covered it with Judy,
okay.
And they'll see it every single time.
Every single time. So greatest good for the greatest number. So again, the roles of CERT and what we do, we play a very important role in safety by working with small fires before they become large fires. That's when we want to be there. We want to be there when they're small, as the size of an office waste paper basket, not larger than that. We want to work with them when they're small. We want to make sure that we are doing what we can to prevent additional fires. We want to remove the fuel. so that there isn't any more fuel sources. I'll talk about what is needed for a fire to start. If we need to, shutting off utilities and how we can do that safely. And then how we can assist with evacuations when necessary. As we've all learned now, we're wildfires and such, we've got to evacuate areas, how we can do that safely. Our priorities, our safety is number one. You're working with a buddy, you're looking out for your buddy, and your buddy's looking out for you. We're always wearing, I wanted to go back, sorry, always wearing our PPE, our safety equipment, and we're doing the greatest good for the greatest number. We're going to talk about the fire triangle, and the fire triangle needs three pieces in order for it to work: fuel, oxygen, and heat. And it is a chemical reaction. The fire starts. Without one of those three legs of that triangle, a fire cannot start. So the heat is needed. Heat is required to elevate the temperature of the material to the ignition point. The fuel is either a solid, a liquid, a gas, and that'll determine what extinguisher would be using when the fire has started. And oxygen is needed in order to fuel the fire. If you take one of those out, again, fire goes out. You can go to the next one. So, classes of fires. Now, if there is a fire, you'll need to know what's burning so that you know what extinguisher to use. Many of our household fire extinguishers are ABCs. That's part of homework. Go and look at the fire extinguishers that you have in your house, because everybody has them in their houses. Yes, that should be everybody nodding. So what we're talking about is the classes of fires. So your class A, those ordinary combustibles like paper, cloth, wood, rubber, and many of the plastics. The class Bs are your flammable and combustible liquids like oils and gasolines, lighter fluid, kerosene, and only the vapors of those burn. So just be mindful of that. A class C is an energized electrical equipment like your toaster, you've got wires. As soon as, if you've got a toaster that's on fire, if you can safely take that cord, knock it from the wall, it is now not a class C, it's no longer energized, it becomes a class A, a regular ordinary combustible that can be put out. And then you've got your Ds, you've got your combustible metals, and a lot of times you'll see those in businesses and such like that. They're going to have specialized fire extinguishers for the type of metals that are there within their businesses. Class K is cooking oils, and often you see those, they're big hoods that sometimes are, or they're sitting there, they're bright silver, and they're registered K for the cooking oils, your vegetable oils, your animal fats, and things like that. Next slide. So we talk about the CERT fire size up, and the size up still is, if you think about what Judy talked about, gathering the facts, assess and communicate the damage, consider the probabilities, assess your own situation. We're doing that always, and then we are evaluating the progress. And if we realize, even during the middle of all of this, this isn't working, we stop what we're doing and we reevaluate what we've got to do. So when we're looking at a CERT fire size up, it helps us decide whether or not we're going to try to suppress the fire. Now, again, we're working with a fire that is the size of a small waste paper basket, not larger than that. If it's larger than that, you shouldn't be attempting it. You could be excited and going, woohoo, yeah, that's what I'm going to do. And your buddy's like, what are you doing? No, stop. That's not what we're trained for. So it's really important to remember to remain within your CERT scope of training. An individual at their house is something different. We're not speaking about that. I have my CERT hat on. I am speaking specifically within my CERT training. So what is our plan of action when we come up to a fire that is the appropriate size? We want to answer these questions. Do my buddy and I have the right equipment? Are we wearing closed-toed shoes? Is our clothing of the right material? Do we have free-flowing clothes and fringes on that? We're really looking at each other to make sure that we're safe. So do my buddy and I have the right equipment? Do we have fire extinguishers that work? Are we wearing our PPE? Are there other hazards? Is there something that could fall down on us if we happen to be stepping into somewhere? Is there a door that can close? Is there a floor? Is there something that could spill? So those are things that we're thinking about. Is the building structurally damaged? That's what I'm speaking of. In terms of doors that can close, that's the next question. Can my buddy and I escape? Judy referred to, and I'll speak to this, that you're fighting a fire with two people. The first person is looking at the fire. The second person is everything but the fire. And so that your second team member is looking to make sure that you guys can escape. And can we fight the fire safely? So again, we will say it to nauseating lengths. Safety is most important for all of us. Firefighting resources. Now, if we have a fire, the first thing you do, you call 911. You get them rolling. And if they are rolling and you've put the fire out, they arrive, they're not going to scold you. They're going to go, woohoo, yay, you did it. They'll make sure that the fire's out, but always call them first in the event that something goes terribly wrong. So your local fire department are our firefighting resources. Fire alarm systems. You'll hear smoke detectors, you'll hear CO detectors. If you've been in a building, there's usually lights and horns that go off. So we're talking about fire alarm systems. Sprinkler systems in many commercial buildings and residential buildings. Sometimes they're heat triggered, sometimes they're censored by smoke, and they'll go ahead and they'll put out a tremendous amount of water that will flood an area to put out that fire. You've got your portable fire extinguishers that we can use. And then we've got like interior wet standpipes. What will happen through this entire course of things, you are going to start noticing things that you have not ever noticed before. And it is amazing how all of a sudden you're like, oh, there's a fire extinguisher. That's a wet standpipe. That's what they were talking about. So you're just going to start being more aware of these things. And that's what this is a resource for that, so that you feel comfortable around it in the event that you need to use it. Or if you're not comfortable using it, you can certainly instruct someone else. You know, I can't lift a fire extinguisher, but I could certainly instruct Margaret how to use one. So these are things what we're doing. Heads up, giving you information. Next slide. So our fire extinguishers can be water, they can be dry chemical, they can be carbon dioxide, they can be specialized. And again, it's really going to depend on what it is. Many businesses have specific kinds if they're working with the metals, like I was speaking of. The fire extinguishers are invaluable for small fires. Your home should have multiple fire extinguishers. You should have one in your garage. You should have one in your kitchen. You should have one as you're exiting your house. There's nothing wrong with having too many. So you want to have multiples. You want to check them, make sure that they're operational. You're looking at that. We'll go through the dial here. So the fuel that is burning determines the type of extinguisher. As I said, usually our homes are class A, B, and C. Extinguisher rating labels, there's not a test on this. This is really for informational purposes. The labels show the type of fires that the extinguisher used. If you really want to get into that, go on to YouTube. There's amazing videos. And these ratings are actually determined by how fast people can put out pallets, they stack them a certain way, and they rate them like that. So you can go ahead, look into this. If I need to use a fire extinguisher, I'm going to be using the fire extinguisher that I have there. I'm not going to be standing there reading a label. Again, informational purposes, the higher the number on the label, the greater amount of extinguishing agent. I don't know if anybody has ever had the opportunity to use a dry chemical fire extinguisher. I have. You are covered head to toe in a fine powder. It goes everywhere, and it extinguishes a fire amazingly fast when you're putting it out correctly. And again, we'll cover that. So sample label, you can see that, read it if it's something you want to. It's on all fire extinguishers. You can go ahead. So we work with the acronym PASS. And this is the acronym that is used for fire to put the fire out. This is something that you will end up doing at your hands-on class. So familiarize yourself with it. I know that we with Alameda County Fire, we go, hey, pass, and then you have to yell out what it means. So P is pull. You're pulling the pin. You want to pull the pin before you get to the fire. Okay, pull the pin. And what that does is that releases the handles so that the handles can be squeezed together. Aim. You're aiming at the base of the fire. That is the fuel that is burning. It is not at the flames that are high above, but at the actual fuel that is burning. So you're aiming right at the base of the fire, and you're going 6 inches to a foot on either side of that, and you're going to be blanketing that area. So pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, and if you have one that has a nozzle, many of the household ones just have a little itty bitty stub on it, and you're aiming that stub at the bottom of the fire. If you happen to be in a place that has a nozzle with a hose, if you put your finger at the end of that nozzle and point your finger at the base of the fire, that is what you're trying to do. So you're going to aim at the bottom of the fire, and then what you're going to do is you're going to squeeze. And when you're squeezing the handle from the top is squeezing to the bottom. So if you end up with a large fire extinguisher and you cannot hold it, you literally could put it on the ground and just push that handle down. That's what you're doing. So you're squeezing them and sweeping. I mentioned you're sweeping aggressively. It's like you're using a hose and brushing and washing leaves down a driveway. Aggressively sweeping. So again, pull the pin, aim at the base of the fire, squeeze the handles together, and sweep aggressively. That is the acronym for that. And you want to test the extinguisher after pulling the pin. So you're not completely deploying it. It's just a quick to make sure it's operational. The time you want to know that the fire extinguisher is working is when you're nowhere near the fire, not as you're standing there potentially in harm's way. Interior wet standpipes, this is what I spoke of earlier. They're usually found in commercial buildings or apartments. We are not trained to use these. What ends up happening is the fire department, it's hooked to a water source outside. It actually comes right through there. So you're working with the force of something like the fire department would use. So we're not working with those, but again, take a look at them. You'll find them sometimes in the hallways of apartment buildings, and they have hoses with them. So those are standpipes. Turn them on, there would be the hoses, but that's really for the fire department to work with. Okay, fire suppression safety. Don't injure yourself because you can't help others if you are injured. So please, safety of our individual CERT members is top priority. Go ahead. So we want to talk about things that we don't want to do. We don't want to get too close. Now, mind you, if you're working with a fire, it's going to be hot. You're going to know. You're working within 6 to 8 feet of that. Do not fight a fire alone. Again, we're within the CERT scope of things. We do not go into anything. We do not fight a fire by ourselves. We have a buddy. We do not try to suppress large fires. Small fires can become large fires very quickly. I think you guys watched a video of that prior to this class of a fire that was in a living room, and then just all of a sudden it just ignites and it goes quickly. So you want to make sure that you're not in that situation. You don't want to try to suppress large fires simply because our safety is most important. And we don't enter smoke-filled areas at any cost. Firefighters do that. They have special equipment. We do not carry any of that kind of special equipment. We as CERT members certainly can document a whole lot. If we go in thinking it's a small fire, it's a big fire, we go ahead, we evacuate, and we go ahead, evacuate. We can take notes, we can write it down, we can tell somebody what's going on. So we can assist in that, getting ourselves out safely, documenting what we saw. Okay, so CERT safety, imagine this. We use the buddy system for all of our CERT activities, especially fire. And we spoke about it, and Margaret said that you guys did it briefly at the introduction. We talk about team members and buddies. So we're working with 2 team members. We've got team member 1 who's on fire. So you'll see that there. Team member 2 in that same picture is doing what Judy pointed out in the other picture, is looking at that fire. As I said earlier, that second person, that second team member is responsible for everything else but the fire. And that is head on a swivel, 360. You're looking up, you're looking down, you're looking backwards, you're looking quickly forwards. You want to make sure that there isn't anything that is going to impede your safety. Team member 1, fire only. You are responsible for their safety. So there are specific instructions that we work with so that we have everybody's safety in mind. Be mindful, it could be loud in there. There could be smoke detectors going off, so there's beeping. There could be horns going off if it's that kind of building. So you're going to be using a loud outside voice when you're giving these commands. And I know when we do the training, we specifically look for these because we want to make sure that everyone is safe. So the person in the front has an extinguisher. If they're right-handed or left-handed, wherever they're going to be comfortable, they will put that extinguisher in their hand. Now, I'm a right-handed person, so I actually put my extinguisher in my left hand so that I can nozzle and point with my right hand. So if I am team 1, if I'm a team member 1, I'm carrying my fire extinguisher in my left hand. Team member 2 behind me has a second extinguisher in their left hand too. And the reason we do that is in the event that we may have a malfunction or something like that, we simply put team member 1 puts their extinguisher down and grabs the extinguisher from team 2. I don't have to take my eyes off that fire. And you guys, again, will get this training. It's just a verbal explanation of what's going to happen. So team member 1, fire. Team member 2, everything else. Team member 1 says, before we go in, we want to make sure that we're in a ready position and that we have the pin pulled. And as I said, we test both extinguishers to make sure they're operational. Team member 1 hollers out, ready. And team number 2 repeats that command, because that tells me, team member 1, that team member 2 is on board and knows what's going on. So team member 1, ready. Team member 2 repeats the command. Team member 1 going in. Team member 2 repeats the command. And we have physical contact with one another. So we will have a hand on, because again, if I, as team member 2, am looking around and it's noisy, all I need to do is physically grab that person and get their attention, perhaps, rather than yelling at them. Team number 1, watching the fire. Team member 2, everything else. Then team member 1, fire is out. They're backing out, and they're going to say, backing out. Team number 2 is going to repeat that, and they're watching as they leave. And then team number 2 is guiding team member 1 out. Team member 1 is always on the fire. So you've got 3 commands: ready, going in, backing out. Those are 3 very important commands, and you wait for the second person behind you to repeat those commands so that you know they've got your back and you're working as a team. Does that make sense? Yeah? Okay. Did I make that clear, Margaret? Is that good?
You certainly did. Thank you.
Okay,
We will
absolutely.
practice that on March the 18th.
Yeah, yeah. And as soon as you actually do it, you'll go, I know, I get it. So things that we can do to reduce things ahead of time, because all of this is disaster preparedness. All of this is information that you're going to take in. You'll look at your home, you'll do your own homework, you'll share with family members, friends, neighbors. My neighbors are about tired of me, but it's that kind of stuff. You get this information, you look at it, you share it, you notice it, and you want to reduce the potential for problems. Reducing electrical hazards, the electrical octopus. You've got a splitter, you plug the splitter into a splitter and a splitter into a splitter, and what ends up happening is the outlet isn't made for that. It gets hot, it potentially could melt, then you've got a fire, it's in the carpet, it's in the walls. So we try to avoid those in all costs. So don't overload the outlets. Don't plug a power strip into a power strip. Don't run cords under carpets simply because you can't see them. Carpet will wear on the rubber on the outside. All of a sudden you've got an exposed wire. It could cause a spark, and then you've got a problem. Check for and replace broken or frayed cords. People use them again and again and again. Lawnmowers, weed whackers, you cut right through them. Don't think about it. Throw electrical tape on it. And then the next thing you know, you've got a cord with a bunch of electrical tape on it. It just isn't safe. Maintaining appliances are really important. And that's knowing even where your shutoffs are and things like that. You hear people, a frequent fire is dryer fires from your clothes dryer. All that lint builds up in the vent at the back, and it goes out of the house. That should be part of home maintenance, to clear that out, because those can become fires when the lint becomes too hot and it's in your walls. So maintain those kinds of things within your home. Next slide. So electrical emergencies. Electricity is a thing that you can turn on and off, unlike gas. So know where your power shutoffs are. This is homework. Some people don't know that you can have multiple panels within your house. People think, oh, it's just outside, or oh, it's just the one that's behind the closet door. It isn't. There can be multiple panels. Your main panel's outside, but you can have sub panels within your house. So go and learn where those are. Know where your power shutoffs are for your appliances. Know how to shut a gas line off on your stove, or where where the circuit breakers are for your refrigerator, because all of a sudden the motor's gone out and now it's sparking and smelling awful. Know whether or not you have circuit breakers or fuses. A lot of older homes use fuses, but if you've done any kind of work, insurance will usually require that you upgrade to circuit breakers. But there are still many homes that use fuses, and the circuit breakers, we'll see a picture later, but circuit breakers are different than fuses. Fuses are circular, you screw them in, and fuses, you're flipping them up and down. Post shutoff directions next to all utilities. That's really important. You guys will all learn how to do this. Margaret and I and Judy know how to do this, but if all of a sudden your neighbor who doesn't know anything about it doesn't know what to do, if you've posted the directions and a tool, they know what to do too. So again, it's a matter of sharing the information so that in the event that you're not there, they can get this information as well. Knowing procedures for turning power back on after the fire. Now, it doesn't necessarily even have to be a fire. You go ahead, you turn on a light, and all of a sudden, or plug something in and the outlet sparks and you get that funny electrical smell. It's like, uh-oh, what's going on? So it doesn't have to be a fire. Know how to do that. If you're lucky enough and your electrical boxes, your circuit breaker boxes are all labeled, that's great, because then you can go, oh, that's the kitchen outlets. Boom, click, it powers off there. If they're not, then it might be switching, trying to find that out. So go ahead and go to the next one. So we talk about shutoff procedures: circuit breaker box with the shutoff and a fuse box with the shutoff. So what you're doing is, with circuit breakers, you're going to, if you're turning your circuit breakers off, you're turning off individual circuit breakers first, then the main circuit breaker, okay? And the reason you're doing that is so that you don't have a big load on that main circuit breaker. So turning the individual small ones off, then the main circuit breaker, that cuts all the power. And then if you're turning your power back on, you turn your main circuit breaker back on first, and all your little circuit breakers are off. So you can now start turning those on individually. If you have like I said, an outlet that kind of sparked and didn't smell right and then not labeled and you don't know what it is, you shut off all the little circuit breakers, you hit the main, you shut that off. You're like, okay, I'm calm enough now. I think I can figure it out. I've got a buddy. I know what to do. You turn the main circuit breaker back on, and you can start turning individual ones on. And as soon as you hit that outlet, or pardon me, you hit the circuit breaker that the outlet is, someone can holler, nope, 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 turn that off. You flip that back on, and you can turn the other ones on. Fuse box with the shutoff, that's in the upper left corner there. Like I said, they're small round things, same thing. You're going to unscrew each of those individually, turn off the main circuit breaker, and then go ahead, turn the main circuit breaker on when it's time for that, and screw those in individually. We are moving on regarding natural gas hazards. Asphyxiants displace the oxygen in the body, and explosive readily ignite under the right conditions. So we talk about gas leaks, what to do with that. That's why they say you don't use candles, you use flashlights and things like that, because when you're in a situation where you can't see what's happening, the natural gas, you certainly can ignite something very, very quickly. I will say, remember that you're volunteers. Some people, I know when I'm talking about this, or when I teach MedOps, people all of a sudden it's like, whoa, I don't know what, I won't feel comfortable. It's okay. It's okay. You don't have to do it. It's knowledge-based. It's giving you the information so that you can make the choice. Go ahead. So what we do is we can do things because we can't see a gas, we can't see the gas. Sometimes you can smell the gas. You want to install natural gas detectors. Now, these are things, natural gas is used such as in your furnace, your hot water heater, your clothes dryer. There's sometimes a smell that goes with that. But if you have a natural gas detector, it will detect the minute parts of that. Natural gas is lighter than air and you can't feel it. So having those detectors in those areas so that they can detect it when there's a problem, that's ideal. Install carbon monoxide detectors in the home. CO is a deadly, colorless, odorless gas, and it's sometimes referred to as a silent killer. You unfortunately hear about people that that will bring in propane heaters and such into their homes. It's just if you put in a carbon monoxide detector, you can go ahead and they will detect when there are problems. What happens in this instance is like on garages, attached garages. So it is the incomplete burning of fuel or malfunctioning fuel burning appliances that will emit carbon monoxide. So you want to go ahead, have those in your home, let them do that, let them detect that. Test your batteries for natural gas and carbon monoxide detectors every month. A lot of this has changed in terms of checking them every month. They have lots of long batteries. Change your batteries every 6 months. Usually what I do is I was here for Loma Prieta and the Oakland Hills fire. Oakland was a mess. October is my month when I touch everything, my go bags, my food, I check my water, I check my batteries, I check all of that. October is my month to do that. Some people will do it at the changing of the clocks. So now a lot of us have smartphones. I haven't had to change a clock in, I can't even tell you the last time I had to change a clock. So it's just something that I know I touch it at least once a year. Locate and label gas shutoffs. That's homework. Where are your gas shutoffs? Each of your, if you have a gas stove, it has a shutoff. It has a shutoff in the house, and then you've got your main shutoff outside the house. Have proper non-sparking tools. Do check and make sure that those tools will work. I have, is an older home, and so the shutoff tools, the common shutoff tools don't work because my meter is too close to my home and I can't get certain wrenches in there. So I have zip tied to my gas meter outside a specific tool that will do that. But locate, label, put instructions on your utilities for someone that doesn't know what to do. Okay? Gas shutoff. Locate and label the gas shutoff valves. Familiarize yourself with this. There's a shutoff that the gas comes from the street into the meter and then goes from the meter into the house. There is a shutoff valve there. With gas, you shut off your gas for one of three reasons. You see the dials spinning uncontrollably. That means you have to know what it looks like under normal conditions. You hear it, and it is a huge hissing sound. It's very loud. Or you smell it. It smells like rotten eggs. In those three instances, if it is safe, you will shut your gas off. Now, what happens is once you shut your gas off, it is off indefinitely until a licensed plumber or PG&E can come back and turn that on. And the reason for that is because there obviously was a problem. That's why it was shut off in the first place. But they'll also check your pilot lights and all of that kind of stuff to make sure that something wasn't displaced in that. So it's knowing when to shut it off and how to do it safely is important. The other thing is there are automatic shutoffs. Sometimes with new construction, it's a ball that sits in kind of a bulb on top of your gas line. And if it's rocked real hard, the ball falls out and the gas line shuts off. So with new construction, sometimes with insurance companies, there is an automatic shutoff in there. A licensed plumber can set those up. So in the event you're away and an earthquake happens, that will happen. It will shut it off. But go ahead and familiarize yourself with it. You'll also see a little shutoff valve. I personally tell my class, hey, don't turn it all the way, but see if it'll move. And if it won't move and it's on the street side, PG&E will come out and fix it so that it is operational. And that's what they're talking about. If it's not automatic, if it doesn't have an automatic shutoff, know how to shut that off. So we want to reduce our fire hazards within our own homes. We don't want to be part of the problem. So the kitchen is the main room in the house that has the majority of the fires. You can ask any firefighter, they'll tell you the kitchen. Never leave a pan unattended. Turn it off if you get a phone call or if you got to go answer the door. If things go wrong, don't panic. Take a deep breath. If it's small, remember the 3 things that are needed for ignition of a fire. You need fuel, oxygen, and heat. If you turn the fire off, if it's safety, you've taken the heat away, so the fire will go out, as that says down there. Again, if it's safe to do so, turn off the heat. The other thing you can do, and I think it's on the next slide, is never use water on oil or grease, because that's just going to make the situation worse. It's also going to send potentially that burning material out of the pot, onto the walls, onto the floor, etc. It's just going to make it a huge situation. Use a cookie sheet to smother the flames. And what you're doing when you do that is you're taking the oxygen out of that. And if you're, if everybody knows where their lids are for that, and if you're being safe about it, you can put the lid on there or slide the cookie sheet over the top of the pot. Now I'm going to segue here in terms of placement for a fire extinguisher in the kitchen. Think of your cooktop. Think of a pot on fire there. The fire extinguisher that you have within your kitchen should be within probably 3 or 6 steps behind you, not above the fire, not above the stove, not next to the stove. The object is to get yourself away from that, from what potentially could be burning. So a few steps away, know where it's at. Mark it, hang it on the wall. After a while, you won't see them. Tell your family where they're at. So again, it's one of these things. Kitchen is a great place. The garage is another great place to have those. Hopefully you'll never need them, but you'll want them there in the kitchen. Okay, next slide. Don't be a pack rat. That's a real hard thing, but stuff equals fuel for a fire. I don't know, unfortunately, we hear about these things, hoarders, or you've got resident hotels where people are doing that kind of stuff. Try and reduce the fuel so that in the event there is a fire, there isn't the fuel to keep the fire going. Go ahead. Reduce your fire hazards. We see a foot up there, they're sleeping. Underside extension cord, heater too close to the bed. It's 3 feet from heat. Again, be mindful of these kinds of things. This looks like an older heater. but be very mindful of those. You want to do the best you can to secure yourself, your family. Share this information with others so that we can reduce these fire hazards. I spoke about the smoke detectors and the CO detectors. Most fire victims die from the smokes or the toxic gases. It's not from the flames itself. Installation of a carbon monoxide, the laws changed in 2011, and it will detect the incomplete burning, as I said, of some of the appliances. Test your batteries every 6 months, and the new models have 10-year batteries, but check them, make sure that they work. Is one enough? You're going to place smoke alarm on every floor and in every sleeping area. If you've got multiple floors, that's where it's going to be. And you can see here in the picture, there's one in each of the bedrooms. There's one in the hallway outside of the bedroom. And the smoke detectors do a really weird thing. They beep in 3s. CO detectors beep in 2s, which is a very odd thing. I can hear. I just went out probably last week before last, and I was like, that's a smoke detector going off. And I went and found my neighbor. He had a pot on the stove. He didn't hear it going because it was at such a range. But you familiarize yourself with these things and you're like, oh, wait a second, what is that? Oh, that's a CO, you know, you familiarize yourself with it. So just take a look. It's homework. Check and make sure that you're being safe, that your family's being safe, that your family, your extended family, and your friends are all being safe. Fire safety. We talk about making a plan, practicing that plan. It's really great if you're sitting here and you make a plan, but if you don't share it with anybody, it doesn't do any good. So homework. This actually is quite a bit of homework. Sit in each of the rooms and try to see if you can find 2 fire escape routes out of each of the rooms. Now, common practice is if I came through the door, I'm going to go through the door. Well, if there's a fire in the hallway, how am I going to get out? Well, can I get out of the window? Well, if it's a 2nd story, maybe it's not that easy. Maybe I need to purchase a ladder that I can go ahead and store under my bed, and then go ahead and use that to get out of the 2nd floor. Now, if you purchase those ladders, make sure that you know how they operate. It's really important throughout the entire class. Things that you will buy, familiarize yourself with it. Don't wait until the emergency is happening to do that. So each of the rooms, oh, back it up, sorry. Each of the rooms, look for 2 escapes. Once you're out of the house, stay out of the house. Do not go back in, and you use the back of the hand to feel for your heat because you don't want to damage your hands. You want to also find a meeting place outside. In our home, the first meeting place we have is the tree out front, in front of the driveway. That way, I have 4 members in the house. If all 4 of us are not out there, fire department response, I can say, so-and-so is not here. This is where they were last seen. So find a meeting place outside of your home, a safe distance away, and everyone knows where that meeting spot is. Okay, next slide. Lies. This is limit, isolate, eliminate, and separate. These are chemicals that in the event of an earthquake, they come tumbling out of the cabinet, and then all of a sudden you can make things unknowingly, such as mustard gas, and that has to do with bleach and ammonia. So people think, oh, there are cleaning supplies. We'll leave the Windex and the bleach under the kitchen sink. No big deal. It can be a big deal. Take a look at that, find out what you're looking for, limit the number of chemicals that you're keeping together, isolate those, put the bleach somewhere else, eliminate those that you don't need, and as I said, separate them. Household chemicals that should never be mixed or stored together. Bleach with acid, toilet bowl cleaners. Again, bleach with vinegar, things that we just don't think about. I actually was just in a store the other day and told them, hey, you got bleach and ammonia together. You want to not do that. And what do you know? They changed it. Highly alkaline products with highly acidic products, drain cleaners. Take a look at that. Again, homework. Make sure that in the event of an emergency, you're not making a situation worse. Go ahead. What do we do as, how can we as CERT members assist in certain situations that you'll find later, there are certain things that are stop signs for us. We can be really good witnesses. We can really use our resources and share what we know when the first responders show up. So hazardous material response, SIN, safety is number one, isolate, keep people out of the area, and notify, get help. You've got caution tape, you can run caution tape right down the middle of the street and keep people away from it. Go ahead, next slide. Hazardous materials, we're talking about things that we do not touch. CERT sees any kind of hazardous situation as an absolute stop sign, but we certainly can note what we're looking at and share that with the first responders that have the knowledge. So go ahead and go to the next one. So you'll see these at restaurants, on industrial buildings. You'll see them on buildings that you didn't even know. This is this particular sign for CERT members is an absolute stop sign. It tells the first responders what they need to know, and we as CERT members can say, oh, the red says 4, the blue says 3, the yellow says 3, and the white has a W with a line through it. Do we really need to know what that means? No, but we do need to know that we can take this information and share that. So we don't go into any building that is compromised with this kind of stuff on it. We certainly can voice triage, and we can holler at people. We can grab caution tape, we can tape an area off, we can help evacuate if it's safe to do so. What this means generically, the red is flammability, the higher the number, the more flammable. The blue is a health hazard, the yellow is the reactivity to certain things when the first responders do certain things to it, and the white is special precaution. This particular W with a line through it means you can't put water on this because it won't work. So knowing that kind of stuff is really important to the hazmat teams, and the information that we can share with them with 911. You've got dispatch on the phone. Hey, there's a fire, and there's this NFPA, which is the National Fire Protection Association. You can tell them there's a fire thing on the wall, and this is what it says. Go ahead, next slide. Again, white shows unusual reactivity with water, and OX possesses oxidizing properties. Does that mean anything to me? Absolutely not. I see that as a stop sign. I will give them whatever information that they want, and I will try as a CERT member to keep people clear of it. Okay. There you go. Stop sign. That's what we see. That's what I see. Go ahead. So we talk about a global harmonized system. We wish in a perfect world that we would have all of these signs in the right spots, but we don't always. If we are evacuating someone for any of these reasons, if there's something going on in a building that has this, again, note what it is, what it looks like. If we're evacuating people out of these areas, we want to make sure that they're uphill and upwind, particularly if there's smoke going on there, and we do not enter to evacuate any building that has these kinds of things on this. And again, it's more informational. This is a voluntary international system, and it's developed by the United Nations. It The one that, you know, catches my attention is the one in the bottom right corner. That's skull and crossbones. And I see the one in the upper right corner. That looks like an emergency to me. So it's just kind of familiarizing yourself with those, and you can go ahead and look on those in a little more detail. Do you do handouts, Margaret, with this kind of stuff so that they can kind of look at them?
No, not for this. And I don't even know if this is detailed in the handbook, but the online handbook, but
Okay.
okay.
Yeah. Again, it's really familiarizing. So we've got hazmats in transit. This actually was a huge eye opener for me. I didn't really think anything about them, but you'll watch tankers going down the freeways on 880 and such, or on the freeways now, and you'll see these things. And then all of a sudden you'll be like, oh, well, that's what's going on. Now, they are supposed to have these if they are carrying more than 1,000 pounds in their truck. Now, a driver may or may not flip this sign, so there's a margin for human error. So there could be tankers going down the freeways and roads with more than 1,000 pounds, not having this stuff flipped. But again, something to be mindful of. You see an accident, you're first on scene, you call dispatch and you share with them, there's an orange sign on this. I can't read what it says, but it's an orange sign. Go ahead. United Nations and the, what is this? United Nations and the North American placards. You've got the chemical class down here on the bottom, and then you've got a symbol and that chemical number in there, or a name. Now there is a handbook that you can actually look up what 1203 means. And there's actually even an app that you can plug that into. A lot of the hazmat people and first responders have this. That way they know what equipment they need in order to fight whatever fire or whatever spill or whatever is needed, what containment needs to happen. So again, you want to let them know what's there. If you can see safely what that number is, to respond to them, to share that with them because you're first on scene, great. If not, your safety is most important. Keep people upwind and away from the situation. Basically, if it is greater than 1, then it is 0. You're not doing anything with it. It is a stop sign. All hazard material placards are a stop sign for CERT volunteers. Again, what do? We go ahead, keep people as safe as we can, evacuate them, evacuate ourselves, take notes, share with the first responders or dispatch what's going on. Unit summary. We are talking about keys to effective fire suppression, what we can and cannot do, the class of fires that in the type of fire extinguishers. We talked about the class A, B, C, D, and Ks. PASS, which is the acronym of pull, the pin, aim, the nozzle at the base of the fire, squeeze the handles together, and sweep aggressively on either side of the fire. How to identify the hazardous materials, and that's the stop signs that we were speaking of, but those are the placards that are on the side of the materials or on the side of buildings that you can go ahead and see and share that with people, the first responders, hazmat, dispatch, or anybody like that. Or you're doing a windshield as you're walking you've been deployed as a CERT member and you're walking past restaurants and you're like, this Chipotle has this sign, or this whatever has this sign on there, and I see smoke coming out of that building, and this is what that sign says. So we want to use our eyes. We want to write that down. I know that the form numbers, I've been around them years and I still don't know them. It's just a matter, grab binder paper, write it down as you're walking, let the instant command, here's all I found, and let them figure that out. So we always follow the safety rules for us. our safety is most important. We can't help anybody else if we become part of the problem and not the solution. All
Okay, I'm
right.
going to stop sharing. What questions do folks have?
Yes, that is a lot of sharing, a lot of information.
Thank you.
Of course.
Dawn, thank you so much. That was wonderful.
Sure.
One of the questions that came to mind was we're talking about the hazardous materials, specifically the household chemicals, the
Mhm.
lies. About not keeping bleach with the ammonia. There's a few other ones in there. Is there a place we can get a list of different household cleaners that we should
I
store
would
together? Or?
I would say that if you go, I don't know anything specific, but if you do lies, you use that acronym, you will find it. Bleach and ammonia, separating chemicals, it will give you what you can and cannot do. And it may even say it on the labels of your of the chemicals, you know, hey, this is what this is. I personally know Windex and bleach as far away from each other as you get.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate
Absolutely.
that.
No problem. No problem at all.
Any other questions? Okay. All right, Dawn, thank you very, very much.
You are very welcome.
We look forward to seeing you again when you're up first for light search and rescue.
I look forward to it. I'll go ahead, turn off my camera. I'll be here for the rest of the class.
Okay, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you for your attention and your participation. I just want to underscore again the importance prior to your next class to watch those videos, be attentive, take notes if you have any questions, because you know, your first chance to ask questions about the process to stop excessive bleeding or to create a makeshift tourniquet or to defend an airway by putting somebody in the recovery position, or how to manage when someone is experiencing shock. These questions, we want you to have already looked at those videos to have a general sense. Then Dr. Lum will be going through the medical operations unit. It's going to be a full evening of training, and then it won't be again until March the 18th. So you want to be able to refresh your memory. And then on the 18th, when you come together, you'll be put into teams. You'll be going station to station. You'll just have a little bit of time. Somebody will demonstrate very quickly to remind you how to apply that dressing and to wrap that bandage. Then you and your teammates are going to be practicing these skills. So everything that we teach you going forward is going to be very tactile. You have to remember it for March the 18th. Same thing with that fire video that I sent to you, particularly being mindful about the position that the fire, the leader and the buddy are in. Contra Costa Fire will come to our March 18th, and you will be practicing that, and you'll be extinguishing a fire using their latest laser technology. So as we go forward now, these classes are the ones that you want to be being very mindful about what you're learning and trying to retain it. So with that, thank you very much. Have a wonderful rest of the evening. Happy Valentine's Day. And we look forward to seeing you. If anybody, I know there are a couple of people that came a little bit late. If ever you're late or you have to miss a class, we don't want you to, but if we have to, there are ways I can help bridge the gap and make sure that you get the content. But you'll just have to get it before the 18th. And it does require probably me delivering the content or making it available to you in a monitored way, because this is a FEMA requirement to watch these. So thank you very much. Thanks to participants, to Judy, to Dawn, and we'll see everybody next week.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, guys.